She stepped into Harrington Crest Bank in a modest bride's dress, calm and composed. "I'd like to open a new account," she said softly, handing over her ID. The staff barely looked up, judging her dress, her silence, her lack of labels. "We don't open accounts below premium tier in person." One clerk scoffed. Another laughed. "Try an ATM, sweetheart. This place isn't for everyone." She stood there quietly, letting the humiliation pass like a wave. Then, without raising her voice, she said, "If you won't assist me, I'll call my husband." They smirked, until 30 minutes later, the bank doors opened and their world shifted. The marble underfoot shone like still water, so pristine it reflected the towering crystal chandelier above. Each step across the floor echoed like a clock tick, sharp, deliberate, intimidating. Inside Harrington Crest Bank, everything whispered exclusivity. Oil paintings lined the walls, abstract works framed in gold leaf, a grand staircase curled up like a sculpture, and the scent subtle oud, espresso, fresh leather. Then the sound that didn't belong, soft rubber soles. Mira stepped in, a modestly dressed woman in a pale lilac blouse and cream skirt, her scarf tied with neat care, her canvas tote held close to her side. Not designer, not loud, just clean, graceful. She walked with quiet confidence, but her eyes, wide and warm, scanned the lobby with cautious wonder. She'd never been here before, but she wasn't here to gawk. She was here for something simple. She approached the main reception desk. Behind it sat two sharply dressed employees, Genevieve, with her glimmering French twist and sharp red lipstick, and Drew, a young teller in an overpriced suit that hugged his ambition too tightly. "Good morning," Mira said, voice soft but steady. "I'd like to open a new account." Genevieve blinked, then blinked again, as though Myra's words didn't make sense in this space. "This floor is reserved for private banking clients," she said with a tight smile. "I understand. I saw the sign outside. It said new clients welcome." Genevieve's fingers tapped the counter. "Yes, but typically, that invitation is for those with portfolios, not just paychecks." Drew stifled a laugh. Myra's scarf, her practical shoes, the lack of name-brand bag. It was all too easy to read her, or so they thought. Mira offered a small smile. "I'd still like to begin the process, please. I have all my documents." She reached into her tote, pulling out a navy folder. Clean, precise. No frayed edges. No clutter. She placed it on the counter with both hands, as if offering something sacred. Genevieve didn't touch it. "Ma'am," she said, her voice silken with condescension, "our clients usually open accounts with initial deposits in the six-figure range. That's the kind of service we provide here. It's not that we're unwilling. It's that you may be more comfortable with a local branch. Vanguard Lux has several throughout the city. Very friendly. Accessible." Drew chimed in, grinning. "They even have lollipops at those ones." A soft chuckle from the side. An associate in heels scrolled through her phone, not bothering to hide her smirk. Myra's fingers curled tightly around her tote strap. Her heart pounded, not from shame, but from fury she was trying to bury. She took a breath. "I've researched your services extensively. I'm prepared to meet your requirements. But you haven't asked me a single question about my finances. You're deciding based on my shoes?" She glanced down at them. Simple beige flats, scuffed near the toe. Genevieve arched a brow. "We're trained to assess clients, ma'am. First impressions matter. And, well..." Mira felt her ears burn. She dressed modestly because that's who she was. She didn't wear wealth on her sleeve. Her strength was never in appearance. It was in character. But character wasn't valued here. "Not yet. I can have my husband speak to your branch manager if needed," she said quietly. Drew snorted. "Of course you can." Another voice muttered, "Betty's waiting outside in Civic." Myra's smile faded. She pulled out her phone. Her hands shook now, not from weakness but restraint. She didn't want to do this. She shouldn't have to. But they weren't going to listen until they were forced to. She dialed. The line rang once. "Hey, love," came the deep voice on the other end. Steady, calm, familiar. She hesitated. Her voice cracked. "I came to open an account." They laughed at me. Silence. The still, chilling kind. Then, "I'm on my way." She lowered the phone, clutching it like a lifeline. Her breath shook in her chest. Behind her, someone murmured, "She's bluffing." Totally. Probably called her brother. I give it 10 minutes before she slinks out the back. But Mira didn't leave. She took a seat in the corner, back straight, eyes forward. Her scarf caught the golden light from the chandelier. Her hands rested still in her lap. They laughed again, but she didn't move. The girl who didn't belong stayed. And somewhere beyond those glass doors, thunder began to gather on the horizon. 27 minutes passed. The laughter had faded into occasional snickers. The staff had moved on, but not really. Mira still sat there, too quiet, too composed, too wrong for this place. They thought she'd left by now, or should have. But there she was, same scarf, same calm hands, same scrape flats crossed neatly at the ankles. Genevieve glanced at the clock and smirked. "Guess the husband got busy," Drew muttered under his breath, sipping from a porcelain cup like a king. Or maybe she meant imaginary husband, like the dream account she was going to open. Mira heard. Again, every word. And again, she said nothing. But her phone vibrated once in her coat pocket. A single message flashed across the screen. 2 minutes. She stood. Genevieve noticed a movement. "Ma'am, if you're planning to return later, I suggest making an appointment through our website." "I'm not leaving," Mira said softly. Genevieve gave a practiced, pitying smile. "But you've been waiting for nearly half an hour. I'm sure your time is." And then the doors opened. Every head turned. The noise in the bank lobby vanished. Completely. Sunlight flooded in from behind a man now standing at the threshold. He wore a charcoal suit cut to perfection. No tie, shirt unbuttoned just enough to suggest power, not arrogance. His presence carried weight, not the kind that shouted, but the kind that silenced rooms. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. He simply walked. Past the doorman, who scrambled to stand. Past a woman in heels who nearly dropped her phone. Past Drew, whose lips parted, stunned. Genevieve's jaw slackened. "Wait, is that—" "Yes, Adrian Vale, founder of the Vale Consortium, a man whose name sat on skyscrapers and international headlines, whose face rarely appeared in public without purpose. And now here he was, striding across the marble of Harrington Crest Bank, straight toward her. Mira stood still, the way his eyes found hers, soft but fierce, like a storm that would never harm her, only protect her. He reached her side. No hesitation. No pretense. His arm wrapped gently around her back, his voice low, protective, sharp as steel dipped in warmth. "Are you okay?" She nodded once, her eyes shining. "They wouldn't let me open an account." He turned to the staff. Genevieve suddenly stood straight, eyes wide. "Mr. Vale, sir, we had no idea." "You didn't ask," Adrian said coldly. "You assumed." His words cut sharper than any raised voice. He scanned the stunned faces in front of him. "You work for my bank. Harrington Crest is part of my holdings. This building, this desk, these chairs, you get paid because I exist." Dead silence. Genevieve looked like she might faint. Drew backed away slightly, his confident smile now a nervous twitch. "She came here today," Adrian continued, voice even, terrifyingly calm, "with every right to be treated with dignity. She came prepared, polite, patient. And instead of doing your job, you mocked her." I didn't," Drew started, but Adrian raised a hand. "I don't need your denial. I heard the recordings. I had the front desk staff forward security audio the moment she called." Myra's eyes widened. She didn't know that part. Adrian looked down at her. "No one humiliates my wife." That's when the room changed. Mira, modest, soft-spoken, overlooked Mira, was no longer just a quiet woman with a scarf and scraped flats. She was his, and not in a possessive way, in a respected way. The same woman they had laughed at was the wife of the man who owned their futures. Effective immediately, Adrian said, stepping forward. Both of you are suspended. HR will contact you within the hour. Genevieve gasped. Please, Mr. Vale, this is a misunderstanding. No, it's not. It's exactly what it looked like. The manager of the branch had arrived by now, flustered, pale. Mr. Vale, if I had known your wife was... Adrian didn't even look at him. Instead, he turned to Mira. Do you still want to open an account here? Mira looked at the counter, then at the people, small, ashamed, trembling behind their screens. She thought for a moment, then nodded once. Yes, but with a different banker. Adrian smiled at her, just for her, and turned to the manager. Then I suggest you send your best associate. Now! Moments later, a young woman in a crisp navy suit, her hand steady, her expression kind, escorted Mira to a private office. Adrian stayed behind for a moment, facing the staff one last time. His voice was quiet, but it shook the walls. She asked for nothing but decency. And you failed. Let this be your education. He turned and followed his wife into the room. The doors closed, and the lobby, for the first time since it opened years ago, fell into utter silence. Every employee frozen, every smirk wiped clean. The chandeliers above glittered like they, too, were holding their breath. No one spoke. No one moved. Behind those tall, frosted glass doors, Mira sat calmly across from the branch director, her hands resting in her lap. Adrian stood beside her, not as a billionaire throwing his weight around, but as a man whose presence filled the room with quiet, undeniable force. The director, Mr. Kessler, fumbled through apologies, his forehead damp, his voice shaky. We had no idea who she was, sir. If we had known. Adrian didn't flinch. You would have treated her better? So your service depends on status. I know, of course not. Mira raised a gentle hand, stopping them both. Her voice was calm, clear, like glass right before it cuts. I came here to open a bank account. That's it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't demand anything. I followed the rules, waited my turn, and asked politely. Her eyes met the director's, kind but unwavering. What I received in return was judgment, humiliation, and laughter, simply because I don't look like your usual clients. Behind the glass, some of the staff tried pretending they weren't listening, but they were. Every word, every beat of guilt hit, like a dropped stone in still water. Mira stood, smoothed her dress, and walked toward the door. But before she opened it, she turned back. I didn't want to make this a statement, she said softly, but maybe it needs to be. She opened the doors. The moment she stepped out, every face turned toward her. She walked slowly through the lobby, heels tapping against the pristine marble, past the people who had laughed at her, past the teller who had rolled her eyes, past the assistant manager who had outright dismissed her. Adrian followed close behind, stopping only once to speak. From this moment forward, Vale Group is severing all ties with Harrington Crest, he said, personally, corporately, publicly. The director rushed out after them, panic painted across his face. Mr. Vale, please. We'll launch a full internal review. Training, disciplinary action will fix this. Adrian didn't even look back. My wife gave you the chance to do the right thing, he said. You chose not to. Mira paused, turned slightly toward the crowd. And this time, she spoke not just for herself, but for everyone who'd ever been made to feel small in a place built to make them feel invisible. You don't have to wear a designer suit to deserve kindness. You don't need a rich last name to be spoken to with dignity. Don't assume someone's worth from the price of their shoes or the plainness of their dress. And don't wait until they drop a name or make a call to start treating them like a person. A hush fell again, not from fear this time, but from shame. A woman near the corner, one who had scoffed earlier, lowered her eyes. Another man rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly unable to meet hers. As Mira walked toward the exit, someone clapped. It started soft, hesitant, then another joined, and another, and before long, the same lobby that had once been filled with smug laughter now filled with something else entirely, respect. A standing ovation echoed through the walls of Harrington Crest, not for Adrian Vale, not for his billions, but for her, the woman in the blue dress who came in quietly, asked for nothing but decency, and walked out owning the room.